Welcome to Creating a Life in Music. My name is Mike Salo. I'm a guitarist and music educator from Minneapolis, Minnesota in the U.S., and I want to know how other musicians make their living, how they got there, how they sustain it, and most importantly, the insights and tips they may have for the rest of us. I interview musicians from all over the world, from various parts of the music industry to break down the question, how do I do music full time? So join me as we discover the many different ways to create a life in music. If you're a guitar player who's ever wanted to attend music college but couldn't because it's too expensive or too far away, or maybe you're just beyond that point in your life and you're just too busy with your own family and your own career to commit to something like that, I would highly recommend going and checking out fretboardbiology.com. At only $29 a month, Fretboard Biology takes out all the guesswork, putting the right things in the right order. It's highly structured, highly organized, college-level guitar program designed by one of the top guitar educators on the planet, Joe Elliott. Joe was head of the guitar department at McNally Smith for a number of years, where he designed the entire guitar curriculum, as well as being head over at Musicians Institute in Hollywood for many, many years. He knows what you need to know. And you can get 50% off your first month when you go to fretboardbiology.com/register-salo, my last name, that's S-A-L-O-W. So fretboardbiology.com/register-salo. In this episode of Creating a Life in Music, I talk with guitar player Angel Vivaldi. Angel is a world-renowned guitar player who's toured with the likes of Plini and Intervals, Nita Strauss, Andy James, and many others. He has many releases out. He has a signature guitar with Charvel, and he's just an all-around great guy. So this episode was recorded a few months back, so we talk about some things that have already come out at this point. And we did have some technical issues with the audio. However, I was able to salvage a lot of it. So you may notice times where one of us is very quiet, but it's very far and few between since I was able to salvage some of it. But anyway, I hope you enjoy this conversation I had with Angel Vivaldi. So anyway, we were talking, and it's okay if we kind of pick up from there, but you had said who was on the record now? Because as you were talking...
We could just start over from the beginning. It's fine. You can ask me the question and we could be diligent about it.
I was like, so anyway, but seriously, because everything got thrown off there earlier, but we were talking about, so you had some killer players on that, because I listened to it a few times now, and I was blown away by the bass player and the keys besides yourself, of course.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. That I heard that bass player, and I was like, "What?" I was like, "This is what the hell is?" It's like there's so much of it where I was like, "Are you a Chick Corea fan?"
Massive, yes.
Okay, yeah, same, huge Chick Corea fan. So I immediately got I was like, Electric Band, Return to Forever, El Di Meola, like all those things went rushing through my head. And then I heard the keys solo, and I was like, that sounds like Chick, like the keys player. As soon as it was like a Fender Rhodes or something. It sounded like me.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Yep. We try to get as close to that sort of late 60s, early 70s sort of tonality up until when the actual electric piano comes in. So it's a little bit of a hybrid of a bunch of different types of Latin music. Obviously, it's Latin fusion, but from samba to maricato, which is a type of Brazilian samba. And then obviously a lot of salsa. So it kind of weaves in and out of these things, and that's sort of just more a matter of the music that I grew up listening to. I'm Puerto Rican and I'm from Jersey, so when it came to that key section in particular, and obviously listening to all that, Mahavishnu, and I mean, one of my top 3 favorite artists of the entire world is Jean-Luc Ponty, who's obviously played violin for Chick and Return Forever for many, many years. But yeah, man, no, it was an absolute thrill, and I'm just glad that everyone really enjoys it and that's not misunderstood. I think that's the most annoying thing when you're an artist and you have an idea, or you try to do anything and then it gets misunderstood, or it's maybe not received in the way that you want it to be received, because artists are all fickle and we all want our vision to be understood in the way we intended it. But at the same time, once you release your music, man, it's not yours anymore, and that's one thing. As I'm getting older, I'm starting to realize that more and more. it's mine. It's like, it's my baby. But the second I hit publish on my distribution company, my platform, like that baby's 18, is out of the house now, and it's going to grow up out there, and that's none of my business
anymore.
Yeah, dude. It's an interesting thing you talk about, like the perception from people. And I think, I don't know, for me, man, like it doesn't take, it takes a few albums for like an artist I like. And I'm like, okay, now I want to hear something new from this artist.
Yeah.
Because with me, what happens is as with certain bands that are like some of the bands I've loved so much, I'm not going to name names. It's just like, I think they get in like which is totally sensible. Like it totally makes sense. They get in a groove and they're like, this is what we're doing that people like. We're going to keep doing it. But I tend to like fall off of their like of listening. Cause I'm like, it's the same again and again and again. And it's great. I'm not saying like it's not good stuff, but I always love when an artist like just does something fresh and new. I'm like, yes, it's like, this is what I want.
I agree with you, man. But I'm the kind of person where like especially as I get older, I try to look at every situation, left, right, up, down, like from every possible angle. Like whenever I have an idea, just like think about everything to like support it and to shoot it down. So, on one side, it's like I will never judge an artist by how they choose to put food on their table, right? So like, let's say for instance, if Metallica, like let's talk about Lulu. Jesus Christ, God damn, that happened and it was awful. In my opinion, like Australia was a fucking trash record, but it depends on how sensible the change is, right? Because at the end of the day, when you're growing up, you listen to Children of Bodom and all these bands, and the problem is your audience grows up and they're not angry anymore. They have kids and they're stable and they're happy. And, there's something to be said about growing older with your audience, unless your target audience is new generations of youth over and over and over and over again, which is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with either. But, I'm not interested in playing Martian Winners for the rest of my life. I'm planning on having decades and decades and decades of longevity in my career if I'm lucky, and I just want to speak from an authentic place. I'm not trying to write music, to make, to have a paycheck. I'm doing it because I fucking have to, like we just have to. Whether we get 5 views or not, we're still going to write our albums and we're still going to release them. We're still going to do our videos and stuff. So, but yeah, I just want to be real about who I am, because I feel like to your point, you're growing and you're showing it. Like there's life experiences that influence your art, and if you're constantly writing and playing from the heart, then that's going to change, right? We're not the same people that we were when we were 18. God,
hopefully.
Fucking hope not.
I feel
my
like
God.
maybe, but
right. Isn't that weird? I mean, that's like the thing your parents and like grown-ups around you say all the time, like, and you're like, yeah, okay. And then you get to that age and like, I'm like, yeah, definitely don't feel 35. Like, definitely don't feel that age. Like, still feel like I just became legal to drink. Like, basically. It's like we're perpetually 22. Like such a weird thing. And it makes you actually think about adults in general, people older than you. You're like, oh, you're actually the same. Like you still feel that way as well. And then you see that you start to pay attention to the things they do, and you're like, oh, you're still like a kid. Like sometimes in certain situations. That's a whole other topic, but
I think it runs a parallel.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, you're going to say more, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think whether you're, speaking of, and that's why I always tell people, whether in like, artist consultations or in interviews, is, working on yourself as a person is so much more important than working on your chops, man. I mean, like, it's sort of like, I don't know, you're very much a product of your thoughts, I think, in a lot of ways. And I think that, because I know a lot of bands who have just like, they tour and tour, put out a record, tour, put out a record, tour, put out a record. And all the records sound the same. Like you put all those records together on one big album and it would be cohesive. It would be the same. And I feel like it's just because like touring is the same shit every day. Like, You're driving in a van, you know, or in a bus. You go into a big black box. You're playing for a bunch of people, and then you get back on the bus and you're alone. You know, it's like that doesn't appeal to me personally. You know, I understand the appeal of touring, but no, I understand. But again, like, we're all kids, man. It just depends on how complex and enjoyable we want our playground to be, you know, and it's just more a matter of sacrificing the now for the future in that respect. Because I want a fucking sick sandbox, you know. I want it to,
dude, right?
All my friends to come over and have a good time. So.
Dude, it's so true. That's like resonates so much with me right now because I mean, something like struck in me or changed in me over the past year or two, where I did just the realization of like, you know, speaking of sandboxes, it's like, oh, I'm getting pretty old for this sandbox. I need to upgrade my sandbox. Like I'm starting to think like, oh, I need to really hunker down and start to really work my butt off these next how many years just to, you know, because there's all these things you want in life and you want to achieve in life and or things you want to do in life or the way you would like to be set up at some point in your life. And you start to think about all these things and go like, oh, I really need to start sacrificing the now for what I want someday. And I mean, that's one of the reasons I'm doing this. This is one of the things. I've had about seven or eight people already. And it's one of those things where it's like, you know, and I think you did this well before I did, where you start to think about these paths and you start to change your wording. That's one thing that happened for me. I started to say like, this needs to happen in order for that to happen. Like I need to make these moves, and not that this single move of this podcast is the thing. It's more of one of the cogs in the grand picture of like, how can I do what I'm doing, properly in the most efficient and the most productive way. And the whole point of this podcast is like essentially to talk about this stuff, like how to develop and create a situation where you can have a career in music. I mean, that's why it's called Creating a Life in Music. So, you know, the reason I started it all, I wasn't going to do a podcast, and I started to think of like, how can I provide more value in the sense of like a teacher? Because that's essentially what I'm doing. Most of my job is that. So it's like, kind of got to realize that that's the thing. Not that that's the only thing, but that's a big thing. So like, you know, then you start to go like, this needs to happen. I need to do this and I need to do this. And like, so did you have that thing of like, so you did like how many records? I didn't count. Are you, how many deep before this most recent one were you with records?
So I honestly built my entire career on 3 EPs. Honestly.
Okay, that's what I thought. I thought it was like 3 or 4.
So there were a couple, like my first album was in 2007. That was a full-length album. I mean, it was in 2007. I think we recorded it in 2005. So I think that says enough about the production. You know, it's super fucking raw. And, you know, once I got myself into, you know, once I had a network of people who were like, you know, who knew their shit as far as mixing and mastering and tracking, I took that record down because I don't feel like it was a good representation of what I can do. Because I wrote the songs when I was like 16, man, come on. So the first record I released was in 2009. Well, the first EP for you know, all intents and purposes was Speed of Dark, and then The Universal Language, Away with Words Part 1 was in 2014. And then I did my first full album that's public right now, that's Synapse in 2017. A couple singles in between there, you know, and then now I'm about to release Away with Words Part 2, 9 years after the first one.
If you're a guitar player or bass player, you should really have a copy of Guitar Pro tablature software. I've been using Guitar Pro for like 15 years, and I really can't live without it. At this point, it's sort of an industry standard within the guitar education realm, and it's really easy to use. You can make all your licks and write out all your songs, and you can actually use it in conjunction with ultimateguitar.com, where you can download Guitar Pro files and learn all your favorite songs. So I couldn't recommend this software enough. And if you use the code MikeGP at checkout, you can get 10% off your copy of Guitar Pro 8. That's Mike, MikeGP at checkout, guitar-pro.com. Yeah. So was that like so I actually listened to, I think it was I texted you or I messaged you like a year or two ago after I heard like your whole backstory, and I was like, damn, dude. Like, what the fuck? That's so crazy. Kind of a lot of the shit you went through, and then you just like have become Angel Vivaldi now, like, which is you doing crazy things. I don't know if you remember that text or message I sent you a couple years ago. Yeah. Because I had listened to, maybe you were on Riff Hard podcast, maybe might have been that. I don't remember what it was, but I remember you talking about this album, and you were like, "Yeah, man, I'm mixing in Latin and jazz, and this is what I'm gonna do." And I've been like waiting to hear it, because I'm like, "Oh, this is like not." I feel like so many people are afraid to take a turn like that, even though they like. Because I'm a type of person who I like a lot of different types of music, and my biggest struggle with creating music is like, well, what am I gonna like? What style am I gonna go into? Because I've actually been thinking about doing a similar. Not that I have as much of a history of albums and reputation as you do, but you know, with ideology and my own stuff, it's very metal. But I'm like, I don't want to do that next time. Like, I want to do like all these other things I'm interested in, and I think it's a very bold and like awesome move to do that, because it just shows like, yeah, I mean, I'm into this too, so I'm gonna fucking do this, like, and here it is, and I'm gonna crush this as well, and this is what you get. Like, I think
it's challenging in a different way too, you know, because you're flexing different muscles that, you know, it's sort of like, you know, it's like your conscience is like this beautiful garden that's already preset with all these seeds in these flower beds, you know, and it's kind of like whichever ones you want to water and take care of are the ones that are going to grow, but they're all there, they're ready to go whenever you are. If you're 72 years old, they're still there, you know. And like, I just don't want to wait, you know, because I'm alive now, and that's all I know. And I want to make sure that, you know, when I'm older, that I leave behind a legacy that helps me mature my entire garden and not just one sect of it, you know. And part of that is sort of overcoming fear, because I mean, this is how I make my living, is like, you know, selling records and, you know, putting new music out. So, you know, this different from a business aspect. I mean, of course, it's a huge risk of, you know, doing something different, but I think it's a matter of how you do it. So for me, I think the most validating thing that really helped me make a career in music is the unique visuals that I tie in with everything. So it's like, I say this often, but it's very, very true. Every musician has their own strengths and weaknesses, right? It's like a key. And it's like we start out with a blank key, man. There's just a straight shot, and as time goes on, we're chiseling grooves in the key that you know, will unlock opportunities. You know, it's, you know, like Jared Dines, his key is like he's humorous, you know, he's relatable, and he's a, you know, a competent musician. You know, and you put those two all those things together, and then you have him, and those open up certain doors, you know. And now there's a lot of different opportunities. You could be a content creator, you could be an online instructional person, you can do gear reviews, you could be a TikTok personality, you could be an original artist. There's so many things to do in music now, and not, you know, one's not better than the other. It's just a matter of what type of sacrifice are you willing to undergo, you know? If you're an original artist, if that's what you want to do, in your heart of hearts, that's what you do, man. Like, you don't feel like you have to try all these different things, because if you try something and you go viral for that thing, the second that you change and go back on that, your audience is gone. They want the thing that you went viral for, you know? So I think it's just more a matter of just being honest with what you want and honest with what you feel your capacity has in terms of like sacrificing for that, you know? So when I was a kid, you know, when I was doing Revelations, my first record, man, I was like bouncing from house to house to house. I was homeless as shit. And I had a job, but I wanted to take all that money from that job and put it towards this record, and not towards, like, you know, putting a roof over my head. Would I do that now? Hell no. I'm 38 years old. You know, I'm pushing 40. And the sacrifices change as we get older, you know, like there's things that we're just not willing to do. Like for some, I'm just not willing to fucking learn how to hybrid pick. Fuck that shit. I'm fine with everything else. That's my thing. That's where I draw the line. That's it, right? So, but, you know, I think overall, you know, sort of back to my analogy with planting the seeds in your garden, like, you know, I feel when you do that, you have a much more bountiful artistic representation of who you are, and it's not just, you know, the angry side, you know. And we can have a discussion about, like, I guess the connotation of metal and anger and, because there is a lot of beauty in it. Like there's riffs that Alexi's done that just like I've cried as a kid listening to, because it's just so immensely beautiful to me. So, but yeah, man, I think that it's never too late, and I think that overall you just got to be honest with what you want, man. Just be honest with what you want. Don't feel like you have to do X, Y, and Z just because you follow this guy and you admire him. Like, you can admire dozens of musicians, right? And dozens of content creators. It doesn't mean that you necessarily have to follow in their footsteps, because certain people are just really good at certain things that you're just not good at.
Yeah, dude, I totally agree. I mean, knowing what you want, or at least having an idea of what you want, and being self-aware of your strengths, and maybe your weaknesses. And the thing about strengths and weaknesses, I think that's interesting, is that there can be strengths and weaknesses in your talent or in the things that you're good or not so good at, but there also can be like strengths and weaknesses and in a different way of like your desires. Like there are things that you need to realize that you're not too fond of, and things that you'd be more fond of. Are you more fond of being home and around your loved ones or friends or family as often as possible? Or are you more fond of like, I think traveling and being all over the world and all over the country, playing my music? You have to realize, because like for me, it took me a long time to realize like I've never made one step to like try to tour with a band. And I think part of it is because I'm like, I don't know if I want to be out on the road for that long. And coming to realizations like that, I think are very important. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I would get an opportunity and it would be like, this is fucking amazing. Maybe I'd get addicted. Who knows? Yeah. But at the same time, as far as my now and everything, it's like, oh, like I need to be able to do things that kind of work to my strengths as far as needs and desires, as well as what I'm actually doing. And I think that comes down to like take Charlie, for example. Like Charlie was like, I only want to play drums. Like, I don't want to teach anyone. He like doesn't want to teach anyone. He did it for a bit, and he was like, fuck that. Like I fucking hate teaching. Yeah. And he's like, I love the guys who like want a lesson, but they just want to like ask and bullshit. He's like, those I'm cool with. Like, I'll tell you anything. He's like, cool. He's like, I don't fucking want like, he's like, I don't want to teach a kid. Like, I don't want to teach. And he's like, nothing against it. He's like, it's soul sucking. And I know plenty of musicians who are like that. And that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It's literally, definitely. He knows what, he knows his wants and needs and desires or whatever. So his whole thing was, I only want to play drums. I watched as he literally only played drums for like years. Like everything he did, he was like, I don't want to play any cover band. He just like, I did it for like a fucking year. Fuck that. Like it sucked. Fucking hated it. And so he worked a job that was like kind of not soul sucking enough, but allowed it worked his schedule to where he could like work the job and still have like a crap ton of time during the day to play drums and record himself playing drums and show off himself playing drums. And then Scale the Summit called. And then he was like, sweet, yes, I will go do that. 100%. I want to play drums. And then Five Finger Death Punch called and he was like, sweet, yes. So, but it comes down to like, he was very, very honest about what he wanted to do. And I think that's really important. I think it's very important. I mean, in a way that you're not being delusional, though. That's a big thing. Because there's plenty of people out there who are like, I want to do this. And I've seen students, many students, because I used to teach at a music college. And I remember being like, well, buddy, I don't know if you don't practice at all. Like you barely can play your instrument because you don't put in the work. It's like the work has to be there too. And the awareness, self-awareness, hard work, discipline, all that stuff, but anyway.
No, yeah. And there's sometimes, you have this preconceived notion and thinking that that's the sacrifice that you're willing to do, right? Because every artist in the world has a sacrifice. Like Steve Vai has a sacrifice for being Steve Vai. I don't want that sacrifice because I don't know what it is. I don't know if I have the capacity to deal with that, you know? I don't know what the capacity is to, you know, everyone has something to sacrifice to be who they are. So, you know, but as you're a kid, your perception changes too, because you know, when you're 15, it's like, oh man, my dream is I just want to work at Guitar Center, man, just be around guitars all the time and just like be around music, like that'd be like amazing. You get that, and it's fucking hell. You're like, man, if I could just have a job, you know, teaching music, if I could just have a guitar in my hand and playing all day, that'd be great. You get that, and you fucking hate that, you know. And then it's just like, all right, I just want to be able to play in the band, you know. And then you get you know, you're a fill-in guy. A band picks you up and you go on tour, and you're dealing with you know, alcoholics and drug addicts and people who are fighting all the time. You're like, fuck this is awful. I just want to be able to write my own, you know. So it's like a hierarchy of just, you know, never being satisfied. But that's the journey that you have to go on in order to find what you want. And at some level, you stop and you're like, this is fine, this is good, you know, because, you know, obviously there's risks, high risk, high reward. If you want to do everything yourself, man, it costs a lot of money, it takes a lot of effort, and you have to be obsessed about it, you know. And there's a lot of things that you have to sacrifice. You know, I had to sacrifice living situations, relationships, you know. It's like, it's just part of the gig, you know, because you already know how hot and how much longevity that fire inside of you has, you know, and it's insatiable until you actually get a taste of what it is. And even myself, man, like, I'm not on the label. I've never worked with a manager or anything like that. Everything's been under, you know, just literally me. And I'm happy with where I'm at, man. I'm close enough to the fire to stay warm, but not to get burned. I'm not on any labels. Like, I own my masters. I own my art. You know, and I'm happy here. I'm thrilled here. I'm grateful to be here. You know, do I feel like I hit my ceiling yet? No, I don't. Okay. But at the same time, I have to, like, it's sort of terrifying too, because as we get older, again, there's things that we're just not willing to sacrifice. So, you know, when you're pushing 40, like in my situation, there's this little part of you that's just kind of like, you've come through for yourself a lot. Is there gonna be a time where you don't come through for yourself? You know, because like, how long can we keep that up, right? Because it's a matter of like defining where you are, defining where you want to be. You take action, then you monitor the action, right? And you do this process through every album cycle. My third album cycle was like, all right, you know, I released Away with Words Part 1, defining where I'm at. All right, I have my endorsements, I have this, I have that, you know, define where you want to be. Okay, I think I have to tour because I've been doing this since 2003 and people really want me to tour and I feel like that's what I need to do. And then you take action, you just fucking do it. Quit my day job, went on tour, and it was great. It was wonderful, you know, to be able to look in people's eyes who've been following me since the MySpace days, and I know what they look like. I know their names because they're commenting on my shit, right? And I could just say thank you in person, you know, and then, you know, you monitor that action. Like you do the work, and then you sort of like look back, you look at your numbers, you see, you know, what markets did you hit, you know, and you do it all over again. Next album cycle, define where you are, define where you want to be, take action, monitor that action. You do it over and over and over again. And it changes every time you do it, man. Every time you do it. And it should change. It should change. You know, if you have a copy and paste of every single rotation of that, then you're just sort of like chasing your tail, right? Like, it doesn't. It's kind of like a waste of time in some regards, because obviously there's a lot of nuance and complexity to everyone's resources and individual situations, and I respect that. But for me, it just wouldn't work for me, man, you know. But that's just been my experience.
Yeah, it's interesting you say like when you're like, and what if I'm not there for myself again in the future? I think about that constantly I've always wondered this with other freelance artists that aren't musicians, or just maybe business owners, anyone who's an entrepreneur, because I very, very much see musicians, like, I think it's very important for many people just to be like, I'm a music entrepreneur. Like that's exactly what a lot of musicians do. They run a business, they run very many facets of that business and maybe things outside of the business. So like you could be doing what you do. And I noticed like you have a Patreon. That's like almost like a separate endeavor. And then you have a YouTube channel. That's like a separate endeavor almost. And then you have your reading. I mean, it's all the same Angel Vivaldi thing, but like it becomes this like very entrepreneurial thing. And entrepreneurs, you know, you're there for yourself. And I have that thought all the time. Like sometimes when I have a bigger paycheck or like a higher balance from multiple bigger paychecks in the same time period of time, I'm like, oh, sweet. Yes. And then I'm like, oh, wait, what if that wouldn't have happened? What would my bank account be at? Like what? Because that was just kind of like, was that a fluke? Is that going to continue to happen? Am I going to continue to grow? And then you start to go like, and you're like, like you want to like slap yourself and be like, yes, you fucking are. Just keep fucking working. Yeah,
man. But it's that anxiety that helps us keep going forward. You know, I think that there's people who are, you know, if you know, there's always a price to pay. So if you try to do something and you fail at it, you're going to be depressed. If you try to do something about it, if you try to do something and you're successful at it, you're going to be anxious for the rest of your life because you're always going to be afraid that it's going to go away. And that anxiety and the split between those two different people who are anxious about their success, some people just run their tail around, just like I was saying beforehand, because they have flight, fright, or freeze, and they fucking freeze because they don't know what to do with it. And then they have the anxious people like myself, where you know the anxiety helps fuel it. You know, it'll get me out of bed. It'll keep me up to 4 o'clock in the morning editing something. It'll sort of fuel the fire to compensate for any doubt that I have in myself. And every single time, listen, every time we write something sick, we always think it's our last sick riff. Every time we write a beautiful lick, we always think it's our last beautiful lick. And it's not. It's every single musician feels that way. Me, Misha, Tosin, Steve I, everyone feels the same fucking way. Everyone's musical problems as an artist are not unique, dude. Like, we all go through this shit. It's just a matter of how we handle it. Some people are like, and there's lulls too. Some people who have the capacity to just use the anxiety to fuel it, sometimes we fuck up and we get depressed about it, man. That's a part of it, and that's cool. That's not cool, but I mean, we don't have to be assholes to ourselves on top of that. You know, we could just soften to the experience and just be like, listen, you know, I can't write a song right now. I have horrible writer's block. Does that mean that I'm not a songwriter? No. It just means that I'm in a little bit of a funk. And that means that I might have to just meet that funk halfway with hard work in terms of, all right, I got to go learn some of the music that I love and figure out exactly why I love these sections. Doesn't mean that I'm going to sit there and learn a whole Al Di Meola solo. I just want to learn the parts that just fucking move me, and figure out the blueprints to see if there's any parts in his blueprints that I can take and put into mine, and voila, holy shit, I got a new machine. Maybe I can work with this, you know? That's the process that has worked for me and a lot of the musicians that I work with as well. But, you know, I think it's an individual journey to figure out what works for you.
Yeah, man, I think, you know, that idea of doing something and then failing, or doing something and having success and then having anxiety, it's like, it's such a, there's so many, you know, I was listening to this thing a while ago, how excitement and anxiety actually fester in the same way in your body. Yes. And you can technically, and it's a very difficult thing to do, but technically you could, in theory, like rethink the feeling into one or the other mindset stuff. And I thought that was so interesting, because when I actually thought about it when I was anxious one time, I was like, this is the fucking same feeling. Like, what the fuck? Like, oh, like, what a weird thing. Because I went through a really bout of extreme anxiety in my late 20s. And now it's funny, because I thought that this happened recently when I had this really moment of excitement. And I was like, wow, like, I remember being in the same situation, feeling the exact same way, and thinking I was losing my mind with anxiety. And then you start, but so, you know, the mindset thing. And I think just like, what you're saying about like that anxiety, it like drives you. It's almost, I don't want to say it's excitement, because it's a different thing, you know, for me anyway. But like it becomes this like discipline driving thing that like keeps the motor running, and really that's the whole goal, I think, is keep the motor running and keep the whole goal kind of on task. So like it's almost like you're like, you have to keep reminding yourself, like, this is what I'm fucking doing. So I'm going to fucking do it, and I'm going to work hard on it. And I think it's good for people to hear that. I'm not saying you, but, you know, I'm saying this kind of to everyone who would be listening, like
For
keeping
sure.
that long game, that final goal always in the forefront of like, this is the end thing. That's where I'm headed. Like I got to keep doing stuff to make that happen, and just kind of like try my best to just focus in on it and just focus my life around that as best I can.
Yeah, and you never know what opportunities along the way, again, you would find that type of solace. You're like, this is fine, because the further you go, the more treacherous the road, honestly. There's more at stake. You sacrifice more. And some people are just like, this is my personal version of keeping my hands warm, close enough to the fire to stay warm but not to get burned. And maybe that might be being a hired gun in certain bands, right? That might be fine because they don't want to assume all the risk. Maybe they have families, whatever the situation is. Everyone's a little bit different in that regard.
Yeah. Sort of in the same realm, I have a question. As I think this is very much a question for probably working musicians. And I know I have my answer, and I actually wonder your answer a lot. You get to this point where you're working and you're creating so much, and you're really focused on your business, meaning like your music and everything surrounding that. And I know at one time for all of us, like practice was such a thing. Like it was like all day, every day. Mm-hmm. And are you still able to work in a decent amount of practice? Is it something that you work in every day? Is it something where you're like, I don't have time because or maybe you repurpose, like maybe you see recording as practice or writing as practice? Like what is your take on practice at this current stage in your career? And have you heard anything from other people that you may know on the same stage? Like what are you practicing a lot? Is it worked into your schedule, or do you just kind of see, I play music all the time, like I am practicing all the time?
Yeah, it's very much the latter. I haven't practiced in years, like honestly, in the traditional sense, I'm not sitting here like, with the metronome and running scales or anything like that. I practice through how I write, and the way that I write, I'm very conscious of, like, every guitarist has their bag of tricks. Guthrie has his bag of tricks. Gus G has his bag of tricks. I have my bag of tricks. Tosin has his bag of tricks. There's certain licks that are very signature and identifiable. I think it's just more a matter of being aware when you've exhausted a melodic idea and having a very strategic method and approach on how you expand on that. So I spend a lot of time with my music. I mean, it'll take me a year, maybe a couple years to write a song. It's just how it is. So within that time frame, I'm not working on it every single day, but and when I'm working on it like, I'm usually on it for 4 or 5 hours a day, maybe a couple of days back to back to back, then I have to put it down and then go back to it. It's always an ebb and flow. So because the songs have been with me for so fucking long, and I'm sitting here, when I'm tracking, doing take after take to learn the nuance of it, especially on the new shit, because everything's different. My tone is different from the ground up. It's a completely different sword to wield. That takes a little bit more effort. So it's everything's very low gain. So getting the sustain that I want, you have to compensate for that. You have to find creative ways to phrase, and it changed the way I phrase. The songs changed the way I phrased. So practice for me. Fuck being a guitarist, man. Like, the thing I practice the most on is being a really good songwriter, the best songwriter that I can possibly be. Guitar is just a means to an end. It could have been piano, could have been trumpet, could have been tuba, could have been voice, could have been whatever. But because it's guitar, and it's a mid-range instrument, it allows me to do obviously certain types of music a little bit more effectively, like rock and metal and stuff like that. But with this newer material, it's so much more than just guitar, man. There's no central riff that you're doing variations on. It doesn't exist in this type of world. So with the variations in music, man, it's like, playing acoustic is another huge thing. So there's the fair amount of acoustic on Away With Words Part 2. Open tunings that I'm not used to on Away With Words Part 2 as well. Writing for piano, and it's again, flexing all these different muscles that feel good. Like I'm sore after I write, metaphorically speaking.
One of the best things you can do as a musician is to protect your own hearing. I've been using these Eargasm high fidelity earplugs for months now, and I really love them. They're nice and discreet, high quality, and they don't make any of the sound muffled. They let in the right frequencies that I need on gigs or at shows. You can get 10% off your order if you use code MSALO10 at checkout. That's my first initial M, my last name Salo, SALOW 10 at checkout to get 10% off your order at eargasm.com. So that's practice. Yeah, I mean that's like practice in the traditional sense almost, because like I was asking because I noticed like in the recording process, I've noticed for myself, I was like, geez, I am practicing. Like I'm like, cause like you want something out of yourself, and that's what practice is. You want something out of yourself, so you practice it. And when you're releasing music, you really, or if even you're just like recording a solo for, like I do some studio stuff, sometimes that feels like practice, because I'm like, oh, I have to participate and act in this certain way. So I guess that's what I was curious about, because I've had this recent, not struggle, but this recent thought of like, wow, like I spend most of my time teaching and I'm telling people how to practice. And so I'm like, but I did at one point, I practiced very hard, but I've been trying to work a couple days in a week of like sitting down and almost analyzing a practice routine. Like, how am I actually practicing? So, but at the same time, the reason I brought it up is because, there's this idea of like, what's the actual goal? You know, the goal is for you to release music. So, and I say this mainly to people listening of like, what is your underlying goal? Because if your goal is to make music, then you really shouldn't be like sitting and, well, unless you have a lot of room to grow. At your level, you're so great. So it's like, it's to the point where it's like, why would I sit and practice for 4 hours? I need to record for 4 hours.
Yeah, but
do you see it that way, or?
I can see that perspective, but at the same time, I mean, like, dude, there's an endless amount to learn, especially now. I mean, like, the bar for guitar is raised so freaking high, you know, like a point beforehand, you know, like, you know, hybrid picking, that's like obviously a very trendy sort of technique and it's very effective, you know, but you know, Is it trendy right now? It's extremely trendy. Come on. Have you heard people? This is fucking everyone. Nick Johnston, Guthrie, Polyphia. Everyone's fucking hybrid picking, which is fine.
I've always done it.
Yeah. I mean, Charlie Robbins. I mean, any Instagram guitar, everyone who's young right now is hybrid picking. And
really? Oh, God. I've been doing it. Yeah, it's just been a part of my playing. I didn't really think about it.
Yeah, man. And the way that everyone's using it is it can be a little bit different. And I think it's great. But I think for me, I think it's more a matter of like, again, what are you willing to sacrifice? Am I willing to sacrifice the hours and hours and hours it takes to sort of get that? No. Yeah, I'm happy with where I'm at personally. You know, if I have to tour, then obviously I have to practice a fair bit just to sort of, you know, execute those songs. When I was streaming every day for like 6 months on Twitch, and I was playing my discography over and over like over and over again, and like it got to the point, man, where I was getting like Andy James level clean with my own songs, because I'm not the cleanest fucking player and I'm fine with that, but I was streaming every day for 3 hours and just going and going, you know. So there is something to be said about that, and I think that, you know, that was around the time where I started the tail end finishing the tracking Away with Words Part 2. It's like a mouthful. I can barely say my name. When I say Angel Vivaldi, like, I just can't fucking speak. Thank God I'm an instrumentalist. But yeah, so, you know, there are benefits, and I saw it, you know, and that was only like a year and a half ago. And I get the appeal 100%, but I think about, man, if I took all that time and I just put it towards writing music, I would have another record ready to go on top of Away with Words Part 2. But it's just a matter of priorities, man. Sometimes, like, if you want to be a session guy, you better be practicing all the time. You better know covers and back-to-back. Your ear training better be spot on. Your vibrato better be good. You better have the look. You better be able to perform well. You better, like, have the attitude to be, you know, a hired gun. There's a lot of skill set that's involved with just that, you know. But if you're an original artist, you know, just once you have your voice, just start singing, man. Just start singing. Use it. You put that in your formative years. Use it, and it will get better, and you'll be more you. And that's always better than being the best, because there's no such thing as that.
100%. Yeah, I guess, yeah, that's exactly the point I was making, was this idea of like, what's the thing you're doing, and being very aware of that. Like, what's the thing I'm trying to achieve? Yeah. So if the thing is like, I'm trying to achieve, because sometimes we think about all these things we have on our plate, and then I often wonder if, students that I talk to or people who've talked to me about, recording or doing this or that, like, yeah, I just don't have the time for that. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's like, it might have to eat into your other guitar time, because if this is the thing that you're trying to do, you really need to that's got to be where your forefront of everything is. And that's why I've been thinking about this recently, because I'm like, oh gosh, I have all this stuff I'm trying to do. I really need to get a little bit of practice in there, because I really should be kind of still thinking about that. But yeah, it's like what you said. Like, if you're a studio guy, it's like there's different things to practice for each path that you might take. Like, you're going to practice your songs a lot before a tour. It just is what it is. Mm-hmm. It's what's going to happen. And, it's going to be the same with any gig, but yeah. So the interesting thing to think about with like prioritizing practice, as opposed, because that's really what magicians, we
are magicians to some respect.
Yeah. It's really like musicians, like it should be the forefront. I think it's always I think it's always kind of like one of the four things at the forefront of our mind is like playing and practicing the thing we do. Mm-hmm. But then it comes down to like the actual work that needs to be put in, and how much of that's going to be thrown in, and maybe the practice gets pushed out. But like you said, you get to a certain point, it's like, what are you trying to do? Like you were like, I don't want to fucking hybrid pick. Like, why don't I fucking practice that? Like, I've thought that with perfecting like economy picking technique. I've like kind of been working on. I've been working on it a bit, and I can do it, but I'm not like, I don't know, Frank and Bali. Like, I'm not like that. So
yeah, I think that there's even creative ways to even learn that, right? So like, you could sort of sugarcoat it. Like, if I commit it, like Chris Letchford did this. Like, he wanted to learn how to thump the slap, right? And he wrote a song with that in it, and that's how I would do it. Like, if I wanted to learn how to hybrid pick, I would just commit myself. It's just like, when I was playing like really fast progressive stuff, like I would play.
Didn't Tosin do that too when he first did the thump stuff?
Well, I think he got it from Victor Wooten.
And then he started incorporating it more into the second album, and then so on.
Yeah, I'm not entirely. Yeah, possibly. I mean, that's pretty much his thing, along with a couple of other things. But that's the way that I would personally do it. If I wanted to learn how to hybrid pick, I would just, incorporate it in a song. Just to commit myself to learning it.
That's great, man. Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm. But I'm too lazy, and I don't want to do that.
No, you're not lazy. Angel Vivaldi ain't fucking lazy. So
no, I wouldn't say I'm lazy. I'm just selective with where I want to invest my time in. That's all.
Dude, and as you should be. I think that's like back to the entrepreneurial thing. I think it's something to think about. Like, you, as an entrepreneur, business owner, all those things, it comes down to the fact that like our time is valuable in the sense of there is only so much time in the day, and we have goals and things that need to be done. And I can't tell you how many times I've gotten to the end of a day and been like, fuck, I need to fucking get that done. And then it moves to the next day, and it moves to the next day. And then you slowly cross off this list. But that idea of like, prioritizing things is such a key thing, I think, for many musicians and specifically artists, because I had this conversation with another guest recently. I forget who it was, but the idea of like, I just don't have any time. I try to make music, and it's like, but you just posted about how you just beat that game that you've been working on for 3 weeks or whatever, or you do this, or it's priorities. So, which that's the thing I think people might not understand with music. And I think you really understand it. And, many other people who have a decent amount of success is this idea of like, it is this entrepreneurial venture, and, there are sacrifices. Coming back to that, bringing it full circle, that, you make these sacrifices of like, yeah, unfortunately I don't get to come home at 5 or 6 PM and just hang out the rest of the night. and then wake up and do the whole thing over again. It just becomes a 24-hour thing, which it doesn't make me sad. I enjoy it. Like, I'm like, oh, I'm like constantly building this thing that I'm working on. And I don't know what your thoughts are about that, but I think some people have those thoughts of like, oh, maybe I just wish I had a 9-to-5 thing. But
I mean, I think it's a matter of stability, you know. Personally, for me, especially in an album cycle, man, album cycles are different nowadays. Holy shit, bro. Yeah. I mean, I released my last record in 2017. This one in particular, I mean, the amount of shit that you need to do to release the amount of shit that you need to do in order to release music properly I'm starting to make a list because it's just fucking comical. All the little things, all the platforms have their own rules, all the ads, all the PR, all the press, all the visual. I mean, I live for it, don't get me wrong. I absolutely live for it. There's nothing in the world. I mean, I would say 45% of the reason why I make music is to create music videos. Honest to God.
45.
And you've done some crazy ones. Like that most recent one, I was like, this is like crazy good. It was really good.
It's so much fun. It is.
And I know you spent a lot. Didn't you, like, your very first big like investment was the Frozen when you guys were all frozen, and which one was that again?
Yeah, that was Martian Winter, right?
Yeah, and I remember I heard maybe you told me, or maybe I heard you on a podcast or something saying that was like you made a pretty big investment to make that happen, and it paid off.
Yeah, you know, big risk, big reward, honestly. I mean, and obviously that was, you know, 2010, 2011, sometime around the early 2010s. It's different now. I mean, you know, it's never a situation where, like, you know, things get easier, you know, because the more money you make as a musician, I mean, every dollar that I make as a musician goes right back. Like, you're talking about like getting a nice big check. It's invisible money to me. It's invisible money to me because 90% of the money that I make goes right back into what I do. The only thing I take for myself is my food, my training, because that's incredibly important to me, and just like creature comforts. That is, I mean, I'm not going out on fucking vacation. I'm not, you know, like, that's not my thing. Like, whenever I buy clothes, it's for this, you know?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with music videos, man. I mean, what really did it for me was like watching Michael Jackson music video premieres. It made the biggest impact on me because it was always an event, and you had no idea what he was going to do next. You had no fucking clue, no matter what. So there was this, I don't know. And then as I got older, you know, Nirvana obviously was the artist that kind of like, you need to be playing guitar. That's what did it for me. And just the video, the color grade, the slow-mos, the cast, everything. 9 Inch Nails, like, God, where do I begin? I mean, 9 Inch Nails was probably the most impactful as an adult visual artist, along with Bjork. So it was always this way of visually storytelling, and it really does influence how people listen to your music. It influences people how if they enjoy it or not, because, you know, a good example is Serotonin. So when I toured Europe, I had the incomparable blessing of a drummer. I had Mike Mallion play drums for me. And, you know, we were playing the material off of Synapse, and I sent him the songs, and it was funny. So, like, we're playing Serotonin's in the set, and for some reason I couldn't view the 4K because it's a huge file. I couldn't view the 4K video on there, but my director made it public for me in the States because finding Wi-Fi in Europe is hell. And when Mike saw the music video for Serotonin, it's like that's where the first dance group sort of thing happened. He looked and he goes, "Dude, I get it now. I get it." Because he said to me honestly, he was like, "You know what? I didn't really think much of it, you know, as a song, but like seeing the video, like it all makes sense." And like that was literally his favorite song in that set list from that time period, you know, from that point on. Same thing with The Martian Winter, you know, like think of Beat It, think of Thriller. Like, you can't listen to that song without thinking about those music videos. And it's impossible. It's absolutely impossible. So much like going back to that analogy of like having the groove and the key and stuff, you know, like one of the grooves that I really worked quite hard on is just, you know, producing music videos, and I'm always, producing them myself as far as a storyboard and everything with that. I mean, like from the newest one, the casting, the wardrobe on every single person, the location, the storyboard. I mean, dude, it goes on and on and on. And I live for it. Man. Like, I just absolutely love it because it's so much fun. It immortalizes this artistic intention forever. It will be there forever, And there's something just magical about that, man. I just absolutely love doing it. And I'm just, these next couple ones that I got for you guys, woo! Wild. Absolutely wild. That's the reason why I don't have a beard right now. Yeah, we shot one music is 4 days shoot, and we did Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And today's Tuesday, obviously. So I had 1 day to just like settle in and just like. But man, because we're doing 3 music videos for this album cycle of Away with Words Part 2. And the third one is just the biggest thing that I've ever done, hands down. It is just obnoxious. It's obnoxious. But it's fun. But it's a lot of fun. And I'm sure it will, hopefully, if I'm lucky, it'll be quite a discussion piece for a lot of people. So we'll see how it goes.
Okay. Yeah, man. That's exciting, dude. I'm excited to hear it all. Yeah, so I mean it's about 10 p.m. Wait, you're on the East Coast though, huh?
Yeah, I'm on the East Coast.
11 p.m. It's getting late.
Yeah.
So I can let you go here because I know you're probably got stuff going on and you maybe got stuff to work on, but then so I guess one last thing that we can kind of talk about, and I like to ask, except I restarted my computer, so the thing I had pulled up is gone after that little fiasco towards the beginning. But I'm going to pull it up here. I just want to make sure. So, this whole podcast is about like what we talked about. So the main thing that I'm always trying to get out of this is any advice you can give to people who are trying to make music a living. And that's in any capacity too. And we talked a lot about it. And I think you had a lot of good insight on just any route you take, because I think it's hugely important for someone like yourself to talk about it in the way that you're like, yeah, whatever the fuck you want to do, as long as like there's so many things you can do to make it happen. And I think that's such an important thing. And it's an important thing to realize that like it doesn't have to be just the one thing. It can be many things all at once, different streams of income. And I know for you, and I think many people who are probably listening know like that it's your music, and then you do a decent amount of social media stuff too. Because I mean, you have like what 200,000 followers on YouTube, and probably a shit ton on other stuff too. I've been seeing it on TikTok.
Yeah, in there. Yeah, that's
pretty new though. Like last year or something.
Yeah, it's since actually November. I started late. Oh,
it's only since okay. Yeah, I started late too because like I started doing it, and it's such a weird. It's such a. I'm still trying to figure it out, like kind of like how it works compared to the rest of them.
Aren't we all, man? Honestly, it's the thing with TikTok. It's an amazing tool for discovery, in terms of like there are new people who have never heard of you. So I think if you want to be humbled as an established artist, you go on TikTok and you post your shit and see how well it does. That'll give you a perspective on a completely new audience who has no idea what your credentials are. Like you're starting from zero with them, and there's a couple artists, I do artist consulting and artist coaching, and a lot of the artists that I've been helping grow on TikTok are discovering that, and because they're a little bit older, and it's much younger of a demographic. TikTok's very easy. You just got to post multiple times every fucking day. If you have a catalog of material, it's easy. At first you could just start cutting up everything that you have, but even that's a lot of work. But it's a learning curve like anything else, man. You have to, there, like, in the past, I really let my ego and I'm going to do things my way sort of attitude. And it worked for me for a while. And I got attached to how it worked for me. And then everything changed. And then at some point, things weren't worked for me like I used to, be used to. And you know, and I really had to put my ego aside, and I was like, all right, I have to play the game. Why? Because the bigger picture is that not everyone has heard about me, and it's very important to get unbiased, uninvested feedback on what you're doing, you know. And thankfully on TikTok has been very well received, so it's very validating. It feels good. But you know, a lot of the artists that I was saying before that I oversee, you know, maybe was like lukewarm for them, and they sort of have to change their approach a bit. But anything, man, whether you're doing that or listen, we didn't think MySpace was going to go away, and it did. Facebook is out, you know. Instagram is still holding on, you know. But you know, you can't be old, man. You can't be old. If you feel 18, keep acting on that excitement, you know. Learn AI. Learn TikTok. Don't fight it. It's like clenching during anal sex. No one's gonna have fun. Just go with the flow, man. Learn. Just learn. You know, I won't be willing to learn hyperpicking, but I'll learn how to do that.
Just throw that in there.
Yeah, man. I mean,
yeah, dude, it's interesting because you know, TikTok is such a bizarre place for me because like I just can't. I had this weird. I was like, I grew too fast. That makes no sense. These are fake. These are fake people. People are fake who are following me. I had that thing at first, but that's a whole other conversation that we don't need to get into. But yeah, man, I think, you know, it's really about like we talked about, like having all these different things that are entrepreneurial, and TikTok right now is the thing. I think Instagram's still holding on. YouTube, I think, has become this cable network almost, where you can basically be your own channel, and there's plenty of people having just miles of success on YouTube, which is outrageous. And the Patreon thing, I think, is crazy. I've been kind of following different people on there and been like, oh my God, like, fucking, you got 5,000 patrons. Holy shit. Or this person has 700 patrons. What the hell? It becomes this. Yeah, it's crazy what the things out there for musicians to kind of dip into and really help with their careers. But yeah, dude, there's so many other things I could ask. There's so many things. And there's so many things I want to ask. And maybe I'll ask a few before the end of this. So just kind of some funny, weird questions. So like,
go for it.
Yeah. So I always wonder, because I know I have my answers. Are there any are there like 3 or 4 or 5 underrated like guitarists who are like, these guys are fucking just killing, and more people need to know about them, or musicians? Man, could just be one too.
I would say Stefan Turano is obviously like.
Oh yeah.
No one is better than him. No one's better than. I mean, he's just. I mean, if you're into like, you know, progressive metal and stuff, I mean, like, he is the most technical. I mean, like, definitely the most known technical guitarist on this planet right now. And it's not just technicality for technicality's sake. Like, he is extremely melodic and selective with the note choices that he makes. You know, some people are like robots and, you know, that's fine, but he does it in such a melodically sensible way that it's just like, it's unreal. It is absolutely unreal. So I would just say Stefan Turano, man. Like, he's definitely one of the guys to look out for. Of course, my very good friend Mike Dawes is just a monster on acoustic.
Oh yeah,
just
Mike Dawes, great.
Incredibly innovative and just elegant on the instrument. It's just amazing. And yeah, like that's the only ones that I can. There's endless ones, right? Like, there's so many. But those would be. Oh my God, one of my students, Seth Gray. Jesus fucking Christ, man! Just unbelievably, I just go to his Instagram, man. Everything he plays is live. It's not mimed. And he's just flawless, and not just flawless. Like, you know, I'm lucky that, you know, I do teach guitar, but I'm not sitting here teaching modes. I'm literally working. Every single one of my students, they're all original artists, and we're just working on their music. They're showing me what they worked on, and we're just doing critiques, and that's what my guitar lessons are essentially, you know. But it's separate from like so I do guitar lessons, and I also do artist coaching under this company that I launched called the Zenith Council. Yeah. So like the business consultations are more for like branding and marketing, just kind of figuring out, you know, what you've done and what you're trying to do, and you know. Shit, dude, I wish I had that back in the day. It would have saved me a lot of time and money. You know, because like, you know how it is, man. Like, we're trying things and we're wasting time and monny. It's just,
dude, I have like a career coach. That stuff, I meet with him on Mondays. It's so helpful because you never know. Everyone always questions themselves. And when you can be like, I'm questioning myself to this person, and that person who's very knowledgeable can go like, oh, blah, 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 blah. So valuable.
Yeah, it is. But I think that, you know, and I know that you have a good judgment of, you know, judgment of the character, but a lot of people stop getting coaching for people who aren't doing the thing that you want to do. You understand? Like, so you asked about a couple pieces of advice for musicians. Can I just spitfire real quick?
Oh, of course.
All right, so if you're a guitarist and you're trying to do guitar instrumental music, the guitar that you play is incredibly important. Make it unique, make it identifiable. Yngwie, cream Strat. Steve Vai, white and gold, you know, vibe thing, you know, his vibe. Me, gold hardware. We all have our thing, right? Because when people come up to me at NAMM, like, I'm a huge fan, I'm like, you're the guy with the purple keys, right? I have no idea what the fuck their name is, but I know what type of the guitar that they're playing. So the type of guitar you're playing is incredibly important. When you see someone playing a Sir, you know exactly what type of music they're going to play before they hit a note. You see someone playing an RG, you know exactly what type of music they're going to play before they hit a note. So the type of guitar you play is incredibly important. Number 2, have a website. Make sure it's amazing. Make sure it's amazing. Make sure you have a newsletter fucking email campaign. Make sure you have people's email addresses, because that's direct to customer communication. You don't have to worry about them showing up on a feed. You have direct communication with these people. Don't abuse a privilege. Don't email them all the time. Be honest with what you're good at and not good at. If you don't know how to dress, you don't know what vision you have for your music, hire someone who does. If you're really good at, you know, writing music, but you have no idea how to mix and master, hire someone who does. Or learn how to mix and master your own music, or get coaching with a stylist or something like that to that regard. However, we're all not superheroes, so really be selective with what you want to learn, because it is ultimately going to take time away from you writing music, which is the central idea that you want to do. Reputation is very important. Make sure that you're conducting yourself, you're not disrespectful, and you're not ruffling feathers. Meditate. It'll help you be a little bit more mindful and aware. Don't do drugs. Chill with the alcohol. You know, I'm pushing 40. I don't drink. I don't do shit. I train my ass off. I sleep 8 hours a day. You know, all I do is drink water. You know, I cook all my own meals. I don't eat out. You know, and I feel great. I feel wonderful. You know, so just take care of yourself, because how you take care of yourself is really a reflection on who you are. You know, if you're 50 and you can look amazing, like that's like, damn, this guy has his shit together. So even without much credentials, people will respect you, because you're like, damn, he must love himself because it shows. You know, and there's nothing wrong with loving yourself, man. There's nothing wrong with loving yourself. I think that it's important to have people in your life that you could be just yourself. You could just like show them your ego, but keep it in your house, man. Don't take it out there with you, especially at NAMM. NAMM is literally just people flaunting their fucking dicks like this. That's all they're doing. I did this year. I did this. I don't give a fuck what you did this year, man. Like, talk to me about your life. Like, I don't care. It's not a competition, man, because there's no level playing field, man. For all you know, that person may have had rich parents that paid for that amazing music video or bought them that gear, or maybe their aunt is someone at Sony. You have no idea what people's stories are, man. There's no level playing field. The only level playing field there is like, you know, the internet. Pop your shit on there and see how it does. But at the end of the day, like, stop comparing yourself, because again, you don't know what it costs to be that person, man. And believe you me, you don't want to find out, because you know what you can deal with. You have your own shit and you're used to it. Focus on that. Yeah, man, just try to write the best music possible, because at the very end of the day, you could brand and market yourself to your blue in the face, but we can have this conversation in the year 2060, and the one thing that will always remain true is writing a good song. That's it. branding might be different, marketing may be different. There'll be a million new platforms, but just writing a good song, timeless. So that's my Spitfire advice.
That's actually the last question was actually your best piece of advice. So there it was.
There you go. There you go.
There you go. And there's so much to be said about that because it's like, you know, it's so interesting. And we will end here soon. It's so interesting that you're like, I take care of yourself, no drugs, no alcohol, all those things. And it's interesting to think because like that's who really people are listening. That's who you're competing with. You're competing. I don't like to say that, but I mean like in the sense of those are the people who are really making things happen. There people who are taking care of themselves, taking care of their health. Because at that level, you're starting to actually hone in everything, and everything becomes easier and more clear, and it just kind of it just flows a little bit better, more than a little bit. And so, you know, that's one thing I had to, you know, over the years, it's like, oh yeah, I can't go out and having drinks with my friends till midnight or 1 a.m. on a weeknight. Like, no, I got to be done. Like, I'm already looking at the clock right now being like, okay, I've had 2 drinks and it's 10. I got to stop and I got to go to bed and I got to be up because I got to be up at 7. Because it's one thing, like as a younger kid, like, I mean, I drink, but that's all I do. But if I do on a weekday like this, it's like I'm hanging with someone and it's 1 or 2 and then it's back to bed and then it's get up at 7 a.m. And I have my bedtimes and I have my sleep, but it's, you know, I think what you said about being healthy and keep an eye on that stuff. It's so fucking crucial. I wake up every single morning. First thing I do is work out, sweat, and it sets me up for my day. And I have rules on weeknights. Like I have rules on weekends, you know, it's like I have rules of like, I mean, I know I'm in relationships and we live together and I have rules of like, you know, this is when we do our thing. So like, you know, Saturdays after a certain point, it's like, this is our time. We do the things we're going to do, you know, whatever. And I think it's really important to set those rules because kind of like what you're saying, it's like having those health things in line, dude. It's, it's a huge thing. I don't know if you know Davey Lyon. Shout out to Davey Lyon. Great guitar player.
Lyon?
Yeah.
He was just with me this weekend.
Was he really?
Yeah.
What are you guys doing?
You'll see.
Oh, Davey's a go-getter, man.
He is an amazing, amazing musician and a human being. I met him on Twitch. He was in one of my Twitch streams, and I was just, you know, hey guys, suggest any music and I'll listen to it on stream and I'll react on stream. And I'm very tactfully honest, but man, when I listened to his shit, I was like, fuck, man, this is actually like really exciting. I don't remember the last time I was excited about anything guitar instrumental in a while. And I was listening to it, I was like, wow, this is actually pretty fucking awesome. And we just started talking, you know, quite a bit ever since then. We did a couple consultations and stuff like that in artist coaching, and just like he's just amazing, man, really hard worker. And yeah, we did some really, really cool stuff this weekend, and I'm really excited, man. I can't wait.
And the reason I bring him up is because he is such a great example of someone who like turned his health and life around.
Oh,
I don't know.
Yeah, man.
I don't know him personally, but we've been like kind of like guitar buddies online for a while. And just like chatting back and forth. And he actually, you know, Wesley from Ideology is also the lead singer of his project Chronicles.
Okay.
So that's how I know Davey, because Wesley, Ideology, me and Charlie have that band. Wesley's the lead singer, and Wesley sings for his band for Davey's. That's how I know Davey. And so I've been following for a while, and I realized I was like, oh, he posts about his kind of like struggles of like getting healthy. And he was like, yeah, he's like, I fucking used to like drink and smoke all the time, fucking hated my job. And he like got in crazy shape. I don't think he does any of that stuff anymore. And now he's just like killing it. And that's such a good example of that type of thing. It's just being aware of stuff. So sometimes it's like, people are like, oh, I don't have the energy. It's like, well, what are you doing during the week?
Well, the reason why you don't have the energy is because you're not taking care of yourself. It's like, dude, life is a fucking video game. It's a video game.
Totally.
0 to 10 is easy. It's easy in anything. You could apply this to anything. Like, I literally live my life like a video game, and my religion is my conscience. We'll start with that. Anything that, like, you don't have to. I feel like you don't have to make religion so complicated. If you listen to your conscience, and it has to do with self-awareness and meditating, just being quieting your mind enough to listen to it. Little tiny everyday things. If you just cooked eggs and you have the pan in the sink and you're having sitting water, just clean it. Your conscience is telling you to clean it right now. Just fucking clean it. 5 points. You know?
Yeah.
Like, dude, I am finding points wherever I can. Like, dust on the monitor, 12 points. You know, like, and you constantly play this game. You know, and there's a lot of different types of games, like Mega Man 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So you can say, you know, resistance training, dieting, getting 8 hours of sleep, keeping your house really fucking nice and clean, you know, maintaining your relationships, going to therapy, you know, being able to write music, you know, learning how to do the skill set that you need to do your career. It's all a fucking video game. And the higher you go, the harder it is to level up. But you continuously level up as long as you're putting in the work. But dude, when you're out of shape and you feel like shit and you have this lifestyle that's just not conducive to your goals, man, and you wonder why you're like 27 and you have nothing to show for all the chops that you fucking harnessed when you were, you know, 16 to 24, like, just step back and just look at all the things and just start weeding it out. Get your ass to a gym. Stop drinking. Stop staying up late, you know. But there's also night owls, and I know that there's a psychological thing where, you know, just make sure you're getting 8 hours of sleep. Drink water. Like, just take care of yourself, man. Take care of yourself.
Yeah, it comes down to, like, you know, some of the stuff, it's like, even if you're doing it in, like, just being aware of moderation and in general, like, it's like, if I choose to have a drink, it's like, I'm not going to down 6 right now. It's like, I'll have 1 or 2 and then chill. It's right. Being very aware of that. Mm-hmm. And also being very aware of, like, you know, like, what the day has ahead of you the next day. Like, knowing, like, dude, you got to get your ass up tomorrow at this time, and you have to show up in music if you're doing that. Especially, like, I build my own schedule every day, and like you said before, like, to bring it back around, it comes down to, like, am I going to be there for myself 10 years down the road? Am I going to you know, come through for myself? And every day I have to think that, especially as you get to a point, you know, at this age we're both at, you're thinking it every day. Like, you're like, I have to be there for myself tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day. So you gotta be very conscious. And, you know, it's okay to, like, I don't know, like, then you have to plan your kind of vacation thing. Some people get in this mode where it's like half of every day is a vacation, and I just think it's not healthy.
Yeah, but it's, you know, and even the flip side of what I just said too is, like, you know, the moderation for some people is a matter of not being so rigid with yourself, right? And that's where you can go out with your friends and just, like, have a nice, healthy balance of, you know, a sort of structure in your life that works for you. Because everyone's life is different, man. Everyone's just doing the best that they can, and they're just going through life based on the experience that they had as kids and just what stuck with them and what didn't stick with them, and they're just making the best of it, man. Yeah. That's really what we're all doing, you know? But ultimately, everyone's version of moderation is completely different.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter
of self-aware.
Yeah. Listen to your conscience.
Yeah, exactly. The conscious thing is such a good thing to be like, I know I should do this. There's a famous, oh shit, what's his name? I'm not going to think of his name right now. But he's a famous kind of motivational speaker. And one of his quotes is like, if you could do it, and you would do it, then you should do it. Like, it's this thing, if I could do that, and I would do that if I was in a better mood, or blah, 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 blah. So it's like, then you shouldn't do that right now. So it's like, that's a good way to make decisions. Well, I could do it. I would do it if I was in a better state of mind. Well, then I should do it right now. Then you just do it. Kind of like the egg thing. It's like, oh, I could do it. I would do it. need to do it. And it's, you know what I'm saying? Like, and that's like so many things across so many, you ask yourself, could I do it? Would I do it if I was in a better mood? Yes. Well, then you should do it right now.
Why? Because that's going to put you in a better mood. You're going to get a dopamine spike from doing that.
Yep.
And you're going to get, and depending on what your neurochemistry
and
is.
It sets you up for the rest of the day.
Exactly.
Or the rest of the week or the rest of the month or whatever.
Yeah.
That's why you have checklists. That's why you have lists of shit and you cross that shit off. I have checklists right in fucking front of me.
Yeah.
Like I have 3 different notebooks with 3 different purposes in front of me. And one's a checklist, one's an idea list, and one are just literally just it's mostly student notes. And then some random stuff, but I have 3 of them. I'm not even kidding. I have fucking 1, 2, 3, like in front of me on my desk. I have a pull-out drawer that just has bam, 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 and oops, and I just dropped something off my desk, and my dogs heard it, and they're freaking out now.
Oh no! I hear them.
Oh, they're running. You hear them? Yeah, it's because of something. Hey, idiots. Anyway, with that, maybe we should.
Definitely take care of the critters.
Yeah, I probably just woke my girlfriend up, so that's okay. It's not a big deal. Well, I shouldn't say that. She should listen to this and be like, it is a big deal.
Yeah, totally.
But anyway, man, I really appreciate it, dude. It's so good catching up.
Likewise.
I don't know if people realize, like, you know, yeah. I mean, like, we've known each other for a while now. We haven't hung out too many times, but I feel like I know you so well.
Likewise, man. Like, we have a lot in common. We're very like-minded, and, you know, I appreciate, you know, you as a person and everything that you contribute to music, man. It's fantastic. I'm looking forward to seeing what else you do.
Same, man. I'm really excited for the stuff going on, and this little Davy Lion thing I'm curious about now.
Yeah. It was a fucking trip, man. Definitely will never forget that experience. It was a lot of fun. So
yeah, dude, that kid.
Maybe April
cool
7th.
Music. Ooh, yeah, dude. Yeah, okay, dude. Until next time, you know, I'm gonna keep doing these. This is kind of the whole thing, so hopefully I can have you on again sometime, and I'll, you know, I'll be all upgraded and maybe a not failing setup.
No, it's perfectly fine, man. But
all right,
thank you so much for your time. Thank you all for listening. If you made it this far, God bless.
Yeah, man.
If you'd like to join my Patreon to get your questions answered by the guests, then you can go to patreon.com/Mike Salo. There are several tiers there that you can take part in, and lots of different perks like pre-recorded guitar lessons or even one-on-one guitar lessons with me. There are live master classes every week for certain tiers. And again, you can go to patreon.com/Mike Salo to check that out.